Hey, I'd like to welcome you to Central Online for our series titled Relationship Goals. The last 4 weeks, we've been looking at these goals that we have or should be having in our relationships, and how oftentimes what happens is we base our relationship goals off of things we might see in this world or society or culture or Hollywood kind of sets for us. And we've kind of been redeeming the phrase relationship goals in what it looks like before God, to have God-honoring biblical relationship goals. So the very first thing we discussed was you seek God first. In your marriage, in all of your relationships, seek God first. And then from there, we talked about comparing a covenant marriage to a contract marriage to a casual relationship. And how the difference really is in a covenant, there's unconditional commitment. Unconditional commitment, whereas a contract has partial commitment. It's more about protecting interest and liability rather than being all in. A covenant, we want to be 1 + 1 + 1. All of you, all of your spouse, seeking God together. Then the week after that, we talked about being intentionally married. What's your mission? What are you working for? What are you striving for? What is your goal in your marriage? Is it to just kind of get by, be comfortable, have really, nice things? What is your mission? Then last week we talked about drawing the line, identifying who our enemy is, draw that line with sin, and don't even come close to it. Remember, we talked about how much is a hint. The Bible says there shouldn't even be a hint of sexual immorality or of greed in our relationships. So where is that line? Draw that line, and then don't stand and dwell or fall into sin because you've gotten too close to that line. Stay away, and again, kind of go back to the beginning. Seek God first. Today's relationship goal, and this is the final in our series, relationship goal for today is choose to stay in love. Choose to stay in love. We have lots of choices, don't we? We choose what to wear. We choose what to eat. We choose where to work, where to worship. We choose what teams to root for. Think about that. People out there have actually made the active choice to be Steelers fans or to be Michigan fans. I mean, can you believe making that choice out of all the teams out there, right? We have so many choices. But something we don't often consider is that we have the choice to stay in love. We tend to think more along the lines of approaching love in relationships the way we do the weather. It's Thursday afternoon. I'm here recording this message, and it's rainy, kind of humid, and kind of gross out today for this late in October. Oftentimes, this is kind of how people approach their marriage. It's like, well, it is what it is. It's not going the way, I'm just not feeling it, right? It's the same way they approach the weather. You can't control the weather, you just got to deal with it. People approach their marriage the same way. They experience it, but they feel like they have no active choice to remain in love or not, and thus they believe, falsely, that they can fall out of love. Marriage counselors, marriage books are flooded with stories like this. Stories that kind of follow the same pattern. There's an exciting courtship or dating time or mate selection, whatever phrase you want to use it. There's a very exciting, romantic, almost like Hollywood-esque courting that goes on. Everything feels just right. The songs all make sense. They just seem so deeply in love. All the songs make sense. And I love him. I love her so much. Oh, this is just perfect. And oftentimes they get married at the height of that romantic love. Right? Things are just perfect. They felt so in love for a while. In those first couple years of marriage, they pursue the American dream. And they get adjusted to married life. And yeah, there's bumps along the way, but they get adjusted to that. Maybe they have kids. And finally what happens is you fast forward to someday in that relationship where it just kind of feels empty. That same love and excitement and passion they had during the courting time in those early years just seems gone. They're not as close anymore. They're void of emotion. They're certainly void of romantic love. And it feels more like having a roommate. Until someone in that relationship finally admits, you know what? I just don't love her anymore. I don't love him anymore. Marriage counselors are full of stories that follow essentially that same pattern. Years and years and years go by. Finally, somebody wakes up one day and is like, I don't think I love you anymore. Our goal is to choose to stay in love. Far too often, what I just described, though, is the sad reality in many marriages. A gradual and oftentimes subtle drifting away leads to someone feeling like they no longer love that person. Psychologists actually have a phrase for this. They call it the disequilibrium of the in-love experience. I can't hardly say it. It's the disequilibrium of the in-love experience. And so psychologists contend that almost never do two people fall out of love or in love at the same time on the same day, right? You don't have people, we have Hollywood's interpretations, but in real life, they say people don't have that same in-love experience at the same exact moment. And you don't fall out of love at the same time. You know what I call it? They call it the disequilibrium of the in-love experience. I call it a recipe for a country song, right? Because that's kind of what it is. Country songs are full of that. I love her, but she doesn't love me anymore, right? I love her and she's gone. Whatever the case is, people all over the place fall out of love all the time. And that's what makes this relationship goal so unique. We're choosing to stay in love. True, long-lasting love is absolutely a choice, not a feeling. It's a choice. Think about it. Marriages are the one area of life where oftentimes people think they can improve without actually doing anything. They think they can improve by being lazy in it, right? Like if I wanted to get strong, I need to lift weights. I need to do resistance training. If I want to become a better runner, I can't just sit around and think about it. I got to do something about it. I got to train. I got to work. I have to actively pursue getting better. If I want more money, I need to get off the couch and work another job. I need to get off the couch and work harder. I need to do something about it. If I want to be a better football coach, I need to work at it. I need to watch film. I need to study it. I need to understand psychology. If you want a better marriage, you can't be lazy. You can't be lazy and expect it to improve. Yet oftentimes that's exactly what happens. People think, well, I don't feel it anymore. They've not made the choice. They've not put in the work. Genesis 2:24. We've used this verse a lot the last 6 weeks. It says, this is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh. That word united is a really interesting word. Now, I did a word study on this actually several weeks ago in preparation for this series, and I kind of want to close our series with a really good understanding of what this means, to be united. It says a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh. God's plan for sex, for purity, for the intermingling of the souls is designed around this idea of oneness, right? One man, one woman, one God, one marriage, one sexual partner, one lifetime, one mission. Right? There's this plan of oneness. There's a lot of Hebrew lessons here in this word, united. Okay, so we have the obvious, they're united and they become one flesh. But understand this word, this Hebrew word is dalvak. Dalvak, right? That's how you say that. What it literally means is to cling to adhere, to stay close, to keep close, to stick with, to follow closely, to join, to cleave together. One of the definitions was to adhere specially firmly as if with glue or cement. Right? So that's how they understood this word. They were joined in oneness, yet they were still distinct. Right? They were united, but unique. And so I think that's a really interesting way to look at that word. Is it's united but unique. It's pursuing, it's cleaving, it's clinging together. This word is used 52 times in the Old Testament. this word davak, right? Here's a few of the other ways that it's used. In Psalm 63:8, he writes, I cling to you. I cling to you. Your right hand upholds me. So the word cling is the same word, dalvak, that's used here in Genesis 2:24 for united. So cling, united. It's literally translated here. If you were to follow along with the transliteration as close as possible without being able to read Greek, it means follow with hard. I follow with hard behind you, or I follow close behind you. Your right hand upholds me. Of course, in that situation, they're talking about a relationship with God. Following God, clinging to God. But it gives you an idea of how this word is used. Another use of the same word is in Job 41:17. It says, they are joined fast to one another, they cling together and cannot be parted. They're joined fast to one another, right? They cling together, I think like Velcro that can't come apart. Separate, unique, but united. Another example is of this word is in Judges 20:45. This is an interesting one for me. It says, as they turned and fled toward the wilderness, toward the rock of Rimmon, the Israelites cut down 5,000 men along the roads. Okay? It says they kept pressing after the Benjamites as far as Gidom and struck down 2,000 more. So the phrase, kept pressing after, is the same word. That's dalvak. That's the same word that's used for joined fast to one another. They kept pressing after is the same word that's used for cling. They kept pressing after is the same word that's used for united. They kept pressing after. They pursued them closely. So dalvak, used 52 times in the Old Testament. It means to cling, to adhere as with glue or cement, to follow close behind, to join to one another, to keep pressing after, to pursue. Let me ask you a question. Does that describe your approach with your spouse? Are you pursuing them? Are you clinging to them? Are you pursuing close to them? Or have you gotten really comfortable? Have you gotten really lazy? Have you gotten this idea of, I don't know, seems like a lot of work? The biblical precedent is a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife and they become one flesh. A man leaves his father and mother and clings to his wife. A man leaves his father and mother and pursues closely his wife, and they become one flesh. Are you pursuing your spouse? Are you leading your heart? Our relationship goal. Are you choosing to stay in love? Remember, the very first time the Hebrew word was used was in Genesis 2:24. Right? This is the introduction of this word. It was in Genesis 2:24. Describing, before it's used in all these other contexts, it's describing what marriage should look like between a man and a woman. Two souls, united as one flesh. Unique, but united. Pursuing, staying close to one another. Following closely. Is that how you approach your marriage? Are you leading your heart? If you're stuck in a rut, if you feel frustrated, if you feel like you're falling out of love or have fallen out of love, maybe you just don't feel it anymore. If you look around and you're like, man, why isn't our relationship like that? Why don't we have that? If you look and the grass looks greener somewhere else, my advice to you, water your own yard. Take care of your business. Water your own yard. Maybe things look better somewhere else because people are putting in the work. They're making the decision. They're pursuing. Lead your heart. Choose to stay in love. Choose to be in a covenant. Water your own yard. However you want to say it. Adhere, pursue, follow closely. Water your own yard. So how can you do that, though? How can you water your own yard? Well, I've got a really simple thing here. And this is actually one of my New Year's resolution goals that I've been working at all stinking year, and I'm probably not doing as good at it as I would like to. I'm not doing as well with this as I'm doing others, but I'm working at it. So how can you water your own yard? How can you choose to stay in love? How can you pursue closely? How can you follow? How can you cling to? Well, here's kind of the simple application. If you think something nice, if you think something positive, if you think something uplifting about your spouse, say it. Share it. If you're anything like me, oftentimes you'll think really good stuff, right? But don't always communicate it. My football players actually help me understand this. I think better than any other relationship. They're the ones who kind of pointed out to me indirectly that they're not always sure how I feel about a situation. And so I'll rotate kids in and out, especially on the D-line. I try to keep kids fresh, keep them moving around. And the football kids have taught me, they'll come over and they'll just kind of, after I pull them out, they'll just kind of like stare at me. Like they're looking, they're like, was that okay? Like, why'd you pull me out? Did I mess up? And I'm like, oh no, like that was great. You did a good job. I like the way you shot the hands to the guard and followed flat down the line. You didn't get too far deep. Like that was a really good job. You kept your outside arm free. That's what I want. Attack half man, outside arm free. And they're like, oh, okay, all right, thanks, yeah. And what it helped me realize was, I see them doing something good, and I'm not always saying it. I'm not always sharing it. And the same is true in our relationships. Right? We may see things, we see positive things, we understand it, we recognize it, we internalize it, we appreciate it, but we don't say it. If you see something good, if you see something positive, say it. Hebrews 3:13 says, "But encourage one another daily, as long as it is called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness." Proverbs 18:21 says, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." Ephesians 4:29, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you, your words can build people up. The person who needs to hear it, the person who will benefit from it, is very likely your spouse. It's very likely the person you fell in love with and that you love. Whether you're struggling or not, they need to hear. They need to hear those things. The Bible talks about this a lot. Our words speaking life and the way that we care and value one another. It's vital in all of our relationships. And if it's vital in all of our relationships, chances are it's going to be extremely important in the relationship with the person that we have formed one with. Right? That we have created one flesh. If speaking life is going to be important to every single person I interact with, how about the person my soul has intermingled with? Do you think it's going to be important to her? I think so. So if you think something good, say it. So guys, what does your woman need to hear? What does your wife need to hear? She needs words of affection. Now don't make this weird, okay? Guys, we have a way to make everything kind of weird. I really like the way you carried those groceries in, babe. Whew. You know, like don't make it weird. Oh, I love the way you load the dishwasher. It's non-sexual affection. There's a place for sexual affection. But what I'm talking about here is non-sexual affection. Value and confirm her identity. Remember, gentlemen, when the devil attacked Eve with the very first sin, he attacked her by lying, but what he did is he attacked her identity, her sense of self, how she viewed herself. You're not quite like God. God just doesn't want you to be like him. You're not quite good enough as you are. Don't you see that? The devil attacked her identity. I don't know about you, but when I think about the devil trying to attack my wife's identity, honestly, it kind of ticks me off. And I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to battle. I'm ready to do something about it. And here's what I can do about it. I can speak words of affection to her. That is me going to battle for my wife. Showing affection for who she is, who God has designed her to be. Gentlemen, I know this doesn't always come easy to a lot of us. So the simplest way to do this, it's foolproof. All right? Start by saying, I love you. And hopefully you're not like taking notes on that. Okay, so I need to tell my wife I love her. Oh, wow. Okay, hopefully you're doing that. But add this one simple word. Tell your wife you love her, and then add this one simple word, and then fill in the blank. Start by saying, I love you, and then add the word because. I love you because you honor God. I love you because you love our kiddos and you take care of our kids. I love you because you're my best friend. I love you because you make me smile, because you're faithful, because you lift me up, because you have strong convictions, whatever it is. Words of affection go a long way. I love you because, and fill in that because. Men, you can water your own yard. You can go to battle for your wife simply by speaking words of affection. I love you because. Now, ladies, let me tell you what a man needs to hear. A man needs words of affirmation. Words of affirmation. I read this in Craig Groeschel's book, Weird Because Normal Isn't Working. He talks about how what's normal in our society isn't working, so let's be weird. Let's do things different. He wrote, your husband is becoming who you see him as. Your husband is becoming who you see him as. Honestly, for me, I preach 2 services on Sunday. Usually I've preached it once before that, sometimes the night before, sometimes the morning of, sometimes a couple of days before. Usually I'm pretty exhausted, I'm wore out, I'm tired, mentally I'm drained. Oftentimes I'll get in the car with Jill and the kids and I'll just sit down and I wait for it. Andy, your sermon was great today. I love this point you made. I love the challenge you had. I really like the part about whatever. I just wait for it. Jill builds me up like nothing else does. And if she forgets, if I get in there and she doesn't say anything, I'll just be like, hey, so did you hear my message today? And if she thinks I did good, I feel valuable. If she thinks I'm working hard, if she thinks I'm making a contribution to the kingdom and to the church family, and if she thinks I'm changing lives or speaking into people's lives, honestly, it doesn't really matter what everybody else thinks. Right? That is the person I have become one with. Words of affirmation. You know what she doesn't do? Is she doesn't tell me what I'm not. Yeah, you're not a great speaker. That's really not your thing. But, you tried hard. She tells me what I'm becoming. Ladies, our society tells men enough what we're not. Our society does that plenty. Tell him what he is or what he's becoming. The early days of our marriage, I struggled, growing up, essentially is what it is. I needed to be told several times to do something. And I started getting a little bit better at it finally. I started nobody's here to do these things? I guess I'm an adult now. I have to take care of these things. And so I started doing it. And you know what? She started complimenting me. She started saying things like, oh, you're really good at following through with that. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking care of paying these bills. You really have a good eye for that. Thank you for calling that person. Thank you for doing this. And you know what happened is pretty soon I thought, you're right. That's who I am. That's who I'm becoming. As I'm a person who doesn't need to be nagged. I'm a person who follows through. I'm a leader who sees things through. Ladies, your words of affection can simply be for who he is or who he's becoming. And it may be small. A common complaint is, my husband's just not a spiritual leader. Hey, start small. Hey, I love the commitment you made to being a spiritual leader by going to church with me. I love the commitment you made to being a spiritual leader by saying our prayer at Thanksgiving. Good food, good meat, good Lord, let's eat, right? Hey, maybe it's something that simple, but who is he becoming? Hey, I really like the way you're getting in so much better control. You're holding your anger in check. That takes a lot of self-control. You're really becoming a spiritual leader. After all, If you're following the biblical plan for marriage, you two are one. You're joined together, unique, but you're joined together. You're united. You're moving in the same direction. You've put God first. You have the same mission. You have drawn the line. You are one, and you're pursuing each other, and you're choosing to lead your heart. Understand, this is not some new age type of teaching. This isn't like, oh, it's some crazy revolutionary marriage thing. This is just off the wall. No, this is from Jesus. Jesus talked about this very issue with the Sermon on the Mount. He's talking about the treasures we have in heaven. And in Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 21, he says, "Don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal." Then verse 21, he says this, and underline this if you're using a paper Bible. He says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." What are you investing in? What are you following closely? What are you pursuing? Where is your treasure? What are you joined as one with? Is it your job? Is it your hobbies, your self-interest? Is it your phone? Or is it your spouse? Jesus' directive here was not, let your heart lead you. Let your emotions lead. How do you feel? Then put your treasure there. No. His directive here is lead your heart. You choose to stay in love. And that is why a man leaves his mother and father and is united to his wife, cleaves to his wife, clings to his wife, pursues closely his wife, and they become one flesh. So who or what are you pursuing? Who or what are you clinging to? Who or what are you adhered to? Who or what are you following closely? Our relationship goal, lead your heart. That's what it is. Be in charge of your heart. Choose, make the choice every day to stay in love. That's what a covenant is. Unconditional commitment. Now before I close this, I just want to say for the single people listening to this, it's the same goal for you. When that right person comes who's honoring God and seeking God first, and you can draw that line with, and you have the same mission, right? Understand this. The goal is the same for you, and understand you are worth being pursued. If you're single, if you're dating, I want you to understand you are worth being pursued. You are worth having someone cling to you, to be united to you, unique but united. You are worth having someone who will commit to you, who will adhere to you. After all, we were all pursued, and we are all pursued by Jesus. He would leave the 99 to find the one. And he's done that for each and every one of us. So in our relationships, we should have the same mindset as Jesus. Pursuing our spouse, pursuing the one we love and have become one with. Choosing to stay in love, just like Jesus made the choice to love us. Love us to the point of going to the cross, taking our sins, dying on the cross, being buried, and rising again on the third day, so we could be with him. He chose to love us. Love you, church.